In this episode, we talk about how to keep things top of mind. Get excited because this is Tiny Leaps, Big Change. One of the things that makes following through on the things that matter to us harder is really just keeping things top of mind, keeping the things that we say we want to do on top of our mind when we have to navigate everything else that we're dealing with life, whether that is personal commitments or our job or what our kids need or whatever it might be. There are any number of things that we have to go through on a day-to-day basis. And so when something isn't already established as a routine or a habit, it can be difficult to keep it top of mind, to keep it as something that you consistently follow through with. And this is something I struggle with. I think this is something we all struggle with. I would say probably the number one reason that I fail at a particular goal or in building a particular habit is just that I forget. Sure, in the beginning, I might be super on top of it. I might be doing it every single day for a week, 2 weeks, maybe even 3 weeks, but eventually something happens that makes it harder to follow through on. And then once you miss, it feels like you are going to miss over and over and over again. Eventually, you're not doing it anymore, and you've totally forgotten that you've even started doing it to begin with. This can be a massive struggle. So in today's episode, I want to talk about a weird little trick. I don't know. I don't want to be like clickbaity, but like it is kind of a weird trick to help keep things top of mind, to help you stay focused on the tasks that you say you want to do, the habits you say you want to build, and the goals you say you want to pursue. So when we get back, we'll dive into it. So there is this, I think it's maybe a psychological effect or like just like a quirk of human behavior called the zeigarnik effect. Actually, full disclosure, don't know how to pronounce it, but it is the zeigarnik effect. The idea is that things that we are halfway through or things that we've sort of started but not finished are easier to remember than things that we complete. And this was discovered, so the story goes, and who knows how accurate this is, but the story goes that a researcher noticed a weird trait in restaurants where waiters and waitresses, servers could remember meal orders and drink orders across a number of tables throughout the day. But if you were to ask them at the end of the day about any particular meal, they would forget. And so one of that researcher's students, this is the zeigarnik in Zeigarnik effect. I can't remember her first name, but I'm going to link to all of this in the description of this episode so you'll have access. But Zeigarnik decided she's going to look into this further, and she started doing more and more research, and the resulting learnings was named after her, a la the Zeigarnik effect. So again, the idea is that things that we start but don't finish, things that we're in the middle of, are easier to remember than things that we start and finish. And this is the reason that if you've ever felt like you study for like a test, like think back to when you were in school, or maybe you're in school right now. You study for a test and you remember everything you need to remember for that test and you ace it. The minute you're done with that test, you forget everything. It's no longer saved up there. It's this weird trait that we have that we can remember vast quantities of information for a short period of time. And once we've sort of used that information, once we've accessed and used it, we forget it. There's really no reason to keep storing it. So this is an interesting tool that we have, or at least it could be an interesting tool. Now, what I'm going to talk about going forward, I do want to preface by saying this is all hypothetical. I am not a researcher. I'm not a behavioral scientist, so I cannot point to this and say this will definitely work. And unfortunately, I have not found any or many sources utilizing the Zeigarnik effect in this way. So I want to make sure that that's clear. This is theoretical. This is hypothetical. This is me just learning about a thing and trying to figure out how it could be used in our day-to-day lives. But I want to theorize that the Zeigarnik effect could be used to help us remember and keep the things that we want to accomplish top of mind. And the way that I would try to do this, the way that I would follow through with this, is to start an activity and not complete it so that you can remember that activity when you get home at the end of the day. So here's what that could look like in practice. Let's say that you want to remember to wash the dishes. So this is something that I know a lot of people struggle to do consistently. You want to remember to clean up the dishes every single day when you get home from work. So first, I would start by sort of choosing the time ahead of time that I'm going to do that. So say 7 p.m., 8 p.m., whatever time you typically are free, I would choose that time and sort of schedule it. Like just decide this is when I'm going to handle the dishes. So first you make that sort of decision, you pre-plan it. That's already going to help you sort of keep that thing top of mind because it's been planned. There's a little bit of like, there is this thing coming up and so I need to focus on it. So that's the first thing that I would do. The second, then, if we want to take advantage of the zeigarnik effect, the second would be to start washing the dishes in the morning. This is why I said this is like a weird little trick, because that seems strange, right? We want to start but not finish washing the dishes in the morning. Well, why do we want to do that? Because according to the zeigarnik effect, when we start that process and not complete it, we're going to be left in limbo. It's going to stay top of mind because we know it's this thing we're in the middle of. And then when you factor in there's a scheduled time for this, now we're going to be looking forward to that scheduled time in order to disperse the zeigarnik effect, the effects of that, which could play into some of the lessons we've learned on dopamine, where dopamine is released in anticipation of a reward in addition to at the receipt of that reward. So what you're creating here is this like weird little motivational cocktail where you are creating a scenario for you to anticipate following through with this behavior because you were leaving yourself in this sort of state of discomfort through the zeigarnik effect where you've started a behavior, you did not complete it, it's sitting on your mind all day, you know when it's scheduled for, and so you start to anticipate getting to that moment so that you can disperse the awkwardness and the limbo that comes with the zeigarnik effect. That's how I would try to use this. Now, again, I want to state I'm not a behavioral scientist. I'm sure that there are things that are going to make these tools not interact well with each other. I'm sure that in practice, this is more complicated than me just laying it out. But I did want to share this with you because I think it could work. And of course, I'm going to test it myself. I'm going to come back to you with, here's my learnings. Maybe I'll test it for the next 2 or so weeks. I just need to maybe figure out which activity I want to do it for. But the idea is really simple. And on paper, it makes perfect sense. We start the activity. We do not complete the activity. We pre-plan and schedule when we will complete that activity. And we trick ourselves into being motivated for that moment to come. That's what I think we should be trying to do. And here's my request. Here's my ask. First of all, first ask, if you are listening to this and you happen to know whether or not this will work, you happen to be a behavioral scientist or have some sort of background in a related field that could tell me, hey, Greg, this is not going to work, or could tell me this absolutely will work. Like if you have that expertise and can point to it and say, this is whatever, I would love to hear from you. You can reach out to me in whatever way makes sense for you, but YouTube comments is always a good one. Or of course, Twitter, Instagram, links for everything is in the description of this episode. So that's the first ask. The second ask that's a little bit more general for everyone watching or listening to this right now is to try it. Try it for like 2-3 days and then come back and share your experience. Does this work for you? Do you find yourself actually anticipating the behavior? Do you find yourself thinking about it more? Like literally just stays on your head all day. Like, I want to hear from you. I want us to test this together because if it does work, we might be able to create like a cool little motivational hack together. So test it out. Let me know what you think. Easiest way to do that, find the podcast on YouTube, connect with me there. I'm going to link directly to the video for this episode and just leave a comment letting me know, hey, I tried this, did work, it didn't work, whatever your findings are. So with that said, I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for tuning in. And remember that all big changes come from the tiny leaps you take every day.